Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome on a very special guest to the podcast today. He is the son of the amazing security guard and Chicago police officer who stole the show of episode 6 of ESPN's documentary, The Last Dance. That's right, his dad is none other than Michal Wozniak, who famously hit MJ with his own shrug after winning a quarters game in the Bulls locker room. You can find him on Twitter at Nicholi Wozniak. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome on Nicholi Wozniak. Nicholi, how we doing tonight, my man?
Doing well. How about you guys?
Oh, we're living the dream. It's actually some nice weather up here, so just better than what it has been. We got flooding down where we're at, so just live.
Yeah.
So what are you up to nowadays? I read that you live in Nashville, got a wife and some kids. What are you up to?
Yeah, I got my wife, 3 kids, 6, 4, and 2. I've been, Chicago all my life in the Chicagoland area, and work opportunity brought me down here to Nashville.
Fantastic! It's a great city.
Yeah, it is. It is a good city.
It's a city that I've been looking forward to, hopefully after the quarantine, getting to visit and going with some buddies down there after everything settles down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, honestly, it's truly an underrated city. It's a great city. Great people.
Now, let's get into what were your original thoughts on the documentary? You said you grew up around the Chicagoland area, obviously your family ties. So what were your thoughts on the Last Dance documentary?
Yeah, so actually being from Chicago, I want to be clear that I was born and raised in Chicago. My father was a Chicago police officer, so part of the rules of being a police officer is you gotta live in the city limits. So Beverly Park area of Chicago, a lot of firefighter, police officers, first responders live. First thoughts were it just brings back all those emotions. To be honest, I kind of took it for granted growing up because, I just kind of grew up with it. So I was more interested, frankly, in like the Dallas Cowboys and teams of that nature. So I was kind of like, oh, yeah, Michael Jordan and the Bulls, Right. But it brings back all that nostalgia and all those times my dad take me to the games, put me in the players' ambulance while he had to do his job, and then he'd say, all right, Nicky, let's go. And we go to the floor. I remember when I was like 6 crying because it was so loud in the old stadium.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was just thunderous, but it brings all that back, and it was great to see.
It was really cool to see. But what was your dad like before he got to work with the Bulls at Old Chicago Stadium and with MJ?
Yeah, so my dad was always a character. Growing up, he was the life of the party. There's rumors around, younger, he's the bartender. He's the guy dressing up in the wild outfits. He's the guy on stage. And being a young, kind of flamboyant police officer, they gave him the nickname Hollywood. So it kind of reminiscent of he liked Errol Flynn, but people thought he was like Clint Eastwood with the big 44 revolver, and So he was kind of his own. He was his own character before all of this, and it just kind of so happened where he got to through Gus Lett, CT, and guys like that. He got to work at the Chicago Stadium, got to meet a rookie by the name of Michael Jordan, and kind of the rest is history. They all became friends, and Michael handpicked his guys because they all had reputations of being great at their job, which was on the Chicago Police Force.
So was your dad's first year Michael Jordan's rookie year then?
Yeah. So a lot of people, I didn't mention this to a lot of people. My dad, in his first side jobs in security, were for like the Chicago White Sox. And then he moved. Yeah. So he was a younger cop in like the late 70s, early 80s. And then, I'd say his first few years. I don't know exactly when, but I know his first few years on that detail, security, wearing the yellow jackets. He was he was fairly still a young cop. He kind of getting his bearings under him as a police officer, but moved over to Chicago Stadium. And his first or second year, Michael was a rookie, and all the guys knew, this guy's special. Not even because of his talent, but just because of the type of guy he was. So they all, they were all kind of like more fond of him and hang out with them, talk to him, BS with them walking into the games. And the friendship sprouted from that.
That's awesome. He was a narcotics cop during the day and then did security at night. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Well, Yeah, he would work. A lot of police officers do their shifts, whatever the schedule calls for. So now I know it's like 4 and 3, 4 days on, 3 days off. So a lot of police officers take their off days to work security side jobs. Or I don't remember, but in the early 90s, there were games during the day. So like, so say if he night shift as a police officer, he'd work the day game, and he would just kind of shift his schedule around whenever it worked out. He'd work that side job. So that's how he worked that.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
That is crazy. Like the perfect timing of everything and like being in that perfect spot. And like you said, everyone always knew that like Michael had that charisma about him. And it always seemed like throughout the Last Dance that he kind of liked to have friendships with people a little older than him, or people maybe around his age, a little older. Like they said when he got to Chicago, Charles Oakley, he was good friends with him, and he just like always seemed like he wanted to soak up the knowledge of older people, like with Gus.
Yeah, no, that's true. And one thing my dad always would say about Mr. Jordan was that he was good at kind of listening to mentors. So whether it was David Falk, various people in their circle, he took good advice and good. He had great parents too, so he just was smart enough to listen to good and savvy and would process that. And that's why you see him where he's at right now. I mean, one of the first billionaire athletes, I think, and then a lot of athletes doing like, title loan commercials and things like that. So he was smart and had the right people around him. And he was smart enough to value that. So, and the guys appreciated that about him. So they were willing to, give him that wisdom.
Absolutely. So your dad, obviously this badass cop, awesome security guard. What did he like to do away from all of that? What was, like his favorite thing to do outside of work?
Yeah. In his younger years, when we were younger, it got me into golf. I was a still pretty solid golfer, I'll say, but he loved to play golf with his friends. He actually coached before I was born. He coached with my Uncle CT, a baseball team in Robert Taylor, the projects there in Chicago. He coached the team. He often said that Keanu Reeves movie was kind of after his story.
Hardball.
Yeah, he said that was. No, he said he I don't know the exact details, but he said that they'd been approached or talked about, kind of that storyline. And, they took it from there. So what he was doing and they were called Hollywood's All-Stars, the name of the team. So he was always kind of making his own mark, making his own way, doing his own thing, not caring what people kind of like thought about his look or whatnot. And he always told me, people know me by how I look, and whether you like it or not, and make your mark and live by it, he'd always say. So. But yeah, for golf with his friends, cards, anything, any guys like anything, just being with his guys, and truly being around us. Me, I got 2 younger brothers, and just being a part of our games, and just anything a dad would like to do.
That's awesome.
Cool. I seen that it said that Michael Jordan paid your dad until he passed away in January, and then also he worked for him. Where did he work in Chicago for Michael Jordan after he worked for security for Michael Jordan a little bit after his career too?
Yeah, so my dad actually was working for Chicago Bulls. Then when Michael decided to retire and go play baseball, he told my dad, Gus CT, and some of the other guys, Calvin Holliday, you've seen George Kohler. They kind of traveled as a pack, and hung out with Michael while he was playing baseball. So my dad took a lot of his time off for furlough days, away from the Chicago Police Department to go work the job and travel with Michael. Then he may come back, work a few days, see us a couple of days, then he'd go back on the road during that summer. So he was able to leverage his schedule in that way to travel and be around Michael during that time. And then when Michael came back to play, they were reinstated back as security, but then as a second, maybe even a third job, you might want to call it, he would work detail with the family, with Michael Jordan's family, and he'd go to the house in Highland Park. So from that time all the way until my dad passed, he was working. When he could, he'd go to work to that house in Highland Park and protect it, because you had people. People were going up and taking pictures by the gate. But people were always hopping that gate, or trying to get in, or just getting too close to it. My dad was there watching,
That's amazing.
That's the one with the big 23 on the gate. That's very
Yes.
That's very, very cool that I had heard that they still had security around there, and that's cool that your dad was one of the guys out there.
Yep. He was.
So are you still a Bulls fan to this day?
I'll be honest with you, it's hard.
It is hard.
It is.
Well, a lot of the things come not even because of their record, but because a lot of the things that came out in the documentary, we knew like live, like home, like, well, team's over. Jerry Krause is gonna break it up. Like we knew then, and we were just told don't say anything. But like, so when all this came out, everyone's like, oh, this is so great. I was like, oh yeah, everyone knows that. Like Jerry Krause broke the team up. So it wasn't. It was kind of like, oh yeah, I remember when Dad told us that story, or I remember when Dad said that.
Yeah.
So from that, just left. You kind of, especially knowing what we knew, it was just like, yeah, no, it's they'll probably be like the Red Sox, where after they traded away Babe Ruth, right, and everyone they were good weird. I almost feel like the Bulls are going to follow that same fate. So, I watch basketball for good basketball, but I'm not like, and I was cheering for the Bulls when they had Derrick Rose and they were, had that run, but it was never the same. You can never love them the same, knowing kind of the organizations, how they kind of treated our guy.
Yeah, that's how you saw at the end of episode 10. That was just a dagger to my heart because it's like they hit you with we're going to start the rebuild. And then it's just like we are still rebuilding. Like we just fired the GM.
Rebuilding with Tim Floyd.
Yeah, it was, I can't for the life of me understand. And maybe we're not in that position, so it's hard to judge. But it's like, how do you justify that?
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard.
It's so maddening. It's been 22 years and we still have, like you said, we had the Derrick Rose years, and then it was, a lot of very bad basketball. And you being a guy that wants to watch good basketball, it makes it a little bit difficult to watch, for 3 years out of 22.
I mean, honestly, I talk this to my friends. Like, it's hard to even watch basketball after Michael left. It was fun. Some people didn't like him on the Wizards. I mean, people forget he had 55 points in Madison Square Garden. People forget, like, for a 40-year-old dude, so it hurts. It's kind of like watching, I guess you'd equate it to people who are Tom Brady fans, watching him go down to Tampa Bay. But I was a Michael Jordan fan, so I was just happy to see him play again. I was hoping he'd make the playoffs with his team when he was playing with the Wizards. So I was really a Michael Jordan fan, especially just being like, seeing the respect and the love that him and my dad had. So, but yeah, it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch the Bulls. Frankly, sometimes it's hard to watch basketball.
Especially when your favorite player that you're connected to like that is the greatest player of all time. Like, it's hard to like see bad basketball.
Yeah, and it's just, it's my opinion. It's you watch the NBA has a business model. They have to pick a player. Shaq and then Kobe, and then kind of like you pick this player, and I'm not one of these anti LeBron people, but I'm more like it's not a comparison. Just don't.
Yeah.
They're two different players, and don't try to. It's like a pushback to a marketing ploy. Like, here's the new. It's like, just don't put them in the same.
What can help us get some? Yeah, what can get us more clicks though? That's usually the whole thing with trying to make that like a title or something on like a blog or something. I saw some pictures. I put a picture out on my Twitter yesterday of you and Michael Jordan. What was your favorite Michael Jordan moment, off and on the court?
On the court, when I think he dunked on Alonzo Mourning, and he like was just going nuts. Like, I love seeing when Michael Jordan get upset, because like he always was so cool and smooth. But then just I don't know why, I just would love seeing him get like, because you knew he was really like serious. And the second favorite was when he scored that 55 on the Wizards against New York, and he was doing all that barking, and like I love what's into it like that, because it's like he can, For those are my like that was I mean when he did that, because Alonzo Mourning was always elbowing somebody or somebody, so it was awesome when he did that. Off the court, I mean he was just like I was taught to respect him like any one of my dad's other friends, even so it was like I didn't like shoot the bull with him. It's like it's like if your dad has a good friend, you're respectful to that friend. You're not buddies. That's how my dad does us. So we're not pals. I think off the court, just recently, just being able, just him saying, and I don't take it for granted, nor do I exploit it, but him just saying, reach out if you ever need anything, and then him allowing me to, converse with him on a casual basis, and then being able to just tell him before the documentary started. I just said, hey, I know my dad would say things like, would pump him up. Him and his guys would pump him up, like tell Michael, go get it. After it, some expletives here and there to get him pumped. But I kind of sent him a text just like, hey, my dad would tell you to put on a show, go do them. Just in the vein of that, this is about to break some records, and he immediately replied back, like, I love it. I'll always have Gus, CT, and your dad in my heart. And that's cool. That's really cool. And like I said, it's with all due respect to Mr. Jordan. Like, I'm not his pal. My dad and him are brothers. It's the most honor for him and my dad. So.
Well, that's what I think with Michael Jordan's relationships is if you are Michael Jordan's friend, like you got to keep everything private. Like he only is friends with people that will keep it as private as he likes his life to be. Because with the documentary is you figure out how crazy his life really was when he was playing basketball. And like he was confined. It's one of the most famous people in the world at the time, maybe the most famous person in the world. And he was confined to his own hotel room just to get some like private. Like you couldn't go out to eat. He couldn't go anywhere without just hundreds of people trying to swarm him for an autograph or something.
Yeah. I mean, my dad told us a story one time. They went shopping and they had to go in Chicago, like building to building underground. Like they have a channel, I think on the Mag Mile or one of those, like where you can go basement to basement, kind of like to shop or just do things. So my dad would tell us about things like that. But yeah, it was obviously of course he's going to be private. I would understand. This is my opinion. Because he has a brand he has to protect. Also, you got to remember too the climate back then. You couldn't fire back on Twitter or something if someone put a story out there. So like the media carried a lot more weight. So people say, well, it's a good thing Michael didn't have so. But I would actually beg to differ that because there were less media channels and ways for us to get our information, he was more subject to being scrupulized by the media, which made the media more powerful, which made him have to be more protective of his brand and his image. So, it's like a double-edged sword. You know what I mean? Like, yes, there wasn't Twitter and Facebook, but Instagram, but the media carried a lot more weight. So if they put a bogus story out there, people might believe it more than they,
Especially when like in the documentary when he went to Atlantic City and he had to wait. They waited all that time to do an interview or whatever. Like was it a few weeks later or a week later or whatever? And that's something that like if Twitter was around, like they would have gotten to the bottom of it like right away. Like he could have gotten his point out right away, and like he wouldn't have had to go through all the craziness.
Yeah. So and then I kind of chuckled at some of that because I'm like, nowadays it's like, so. Like I think if you hear about that, I think some athletes it wouldn't even be a story.
Oh no, it's like it's one of those things too. Like with the whole blackjack stuff, like there's one person in like the NBA of all time that could like is like allowed to afford playing blackjack. It's Michael Jordan because, like you said, he's one of the first billionaires. He's the first billionaire athlete of all time.
Yep. So it's kind of like is what it is.
Yeah, like he said, he's like. Blackjack's not illegal to play. It's very true. I like playing. I like going to the casinos too. It's just his environment. People have their stuff, and they said back then if they didn't like it, they criticized it.
Yeah, we did.
So you said that your dad had, I think it was one or two MJ tattoos, Jumpman tattoos. Do you have any yourself then?
No. No, he might basically, and I think the story was in a Complex article. My dad told us this too. Was one day he just hopped up and he was like, "I gotta go." We're like, "Where are you going?" He's like, "M." Call him M. Like M wants to get us some tattoos. So he came back one day with a Jumpman tattoo.
That's awesome.
And then on his other arm to balance it out, he put on himself the number 23 and then a slash and then dog, like DO. Is like. I said this in another discussion. He would, you'd refer to each other, especially in the 90s, as like, "What's up, dog?"
Mm-hmm.
But also looked at himself like Michael's guard dog, So that was his like 23 and dog. So I had a Chicago police officer. I call him an uncle, friend of my dad's partner, John Murphy. He said that your dad would tell me in his Chicago accent. He said your dad would tell me that he says your dad was Hollywood. He'd go with $1,000 suit on, a $4,000 coat on. He'd slap some cuffs on somebody and say, "Nah, I got to go protect 23." And,
That's awesome.
That is. He had the perfect hair too. The perfect. I mean that.
He was narco cop, man. He was narcotic. You should have seen like some of his pictures. He's got a velvet shirt on, all the way buttoned all the way to the bottom of his chest, and the mustache and the
my God.
the whole thing. So that was his style, and he was sticking to it. And he said everyone knew him.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I only got one last question, and that's: did your dad hand down to you the great quarters playing ability that he showcased on episode 6?
You know what? I don't. That's yet to be determined. I've never. My dad has a good friend named Mike that he grew up with, and he told me back in the day we used to play that game with pennies because quarters could go a long way. We would never use a quarter to play that game. Before school, they would play that game with pennies. So I don't know if he passed that down. He did pass some very hopefully some good qualities, and a lot of people say mannerisms and whatnot, but not the quarter tossing ability so much. Again, might be a genetic thing. I might be great at it. I just don't know yet.
You got to take the kids into the room one night when you got time and start playing and see if you got it.
Do the quarter toss, yeah. And then just about that story, like I love that they captured my dad in that moment because my dad being one of the younger guards, that was like their relationship. Michael always says a brother because they were like brothers, always kind of sparring, like finding some way to just rib each other, compete, and obviously it's cool with this regular guy, police officer from Chicago, being able to handle Michael and shut him down like that. It's a lot of fun for them,
And then hit him with the shrug. That was like my favorite moment of all 10 episodes. He just casually
your dad had to be one of the only people ever maybe that hit Michael Jordan with the shrug back right in his face.
You know what?
And he didn't hold a grudge for it either.
No, because they loved each other. They're like brothers, just boys hanging out. So
I love it.
Yeah.
That's what the coolest part of this was too. Like you got to see like the other side of Michael Jordan. Yeah, there was like the media, whatever, and he had to keep this kind of Michael Jordan persona. But like behind doors with the security guards, like Gus and Clarence and your dad, like he got to be friends and got to be himself because he wasn't trying to impress anybody. He knew that whatever he said to those guys, it wasn't going to get out.
Yeah, I promise you, what you saw on camera was literally like if there were no cameras there, the same thing would have happened. Because again, if you could rub it in Michael's face, like that, my dad's gonna take the opportunity to do it. And don't get me wrong, Michael would rub it back in their face too. Like it wasn't like Michael's like, "Oh, you guys are just security guards, so I'm not gonna like." If he's competing with someone, he's competing with someone. So. But that was cool to see because that really, in that short clip, that encapsulated my dad's personality and his relationship with Michael. It was fun.
Because I saw you had a story in The Athletic that was saying that your dad went to a Christmas party of Michael Jordan's and came home early because he beat him in a game of pool.
Yeah, it was. So I don't know if it was exactly a Christmas party. It was like one of those Q4 end of year. Might have been Christmas, might have been like New Year's, but it was a get together. And my dad came home. The story goes, he said, I beat Michael in pool, so he put me out. And in the way he told it was everybody went nuts because it was like, oh, here's John Michael who just beat, so people love rubbing it in. So he was like, all right, you can go, so that's the relationship.
His competitive drive was just insane. Did your dad kind of have that kind of same competitive drive too?
You know what I'll tell you? Michael respected, Tim Grover calls it the cleaner, CLEANER, cleaner. Even greater than the closer. And when we were kids, my dad would try to like instill that in us. And I didn't realize it until I read the book. And I didn't realize a lot until I was, like we all do when we get older. And I finally understood why my dad was so hard on us, because he wanted to instill in us that level of just and do it drive, where you don't even need to make a big hoopla about what you're about to accomplish. It's just you look up. Tim Grover says, you look up and the job is done. You're just, like say cold-blooded assassin, or Kobe called it Mamba mentality, but like it's that mentality. And I will tell you that my dad, having worked as hard as he did, doing as much as he did for us kids, and just travel, just his work ethic alone, I definitely know he had that. And Michael respected that. It's like they say, like attracts like. My father, John Wozniak, John Michael Wozniak, as everyone's calling him now, Clarence Travis, Gus, Calvin Holliday is one of the guys. But I can attest to it and say, yeah, my dad definitely was a competitive person and just did the job no matter what it was. Just got it done.
You could tell that he didn't let people around him that he didn't think had the same kind of drive as him. And like I said, it's very cool that you saw how close your dad was to him, and just knowing that, you knew there was some kind of, like I said, in the DNA or something there, that there was a competitive drive, just like Michael Jordan's.
Yeah, it's definitely learned, and it's like a fire that's untamed, right? Like Michael talked about in the documentary, he was because of his brothers, just years and years of probably getting beat by his brothers, and then not making the team. You have it's how you respond and process your adversity. Some people, just kind of quit, and other people just keep driving against it, and then all of a sudden they built up this momentum that they can't stop. So it's cool. It was cool to see and relive all those talks that me and my dad had about that.
I got one last question. When is the documentary about your dad coming? When are we going to get the documentary about your dad? Because I feel like now the fans are clamoring for that more than anything.
I'll tell you what, if there's enough tweets about it and people, messaging, I think it's Mr. Air about it, the guy, the gentleman who directed. You never know. I mean, if the COVID lockdown happens any longer and there's no football, you never know. But I don't know. I can't speak. I don't know if there's any plans for any of that. I
would love to see one with like your dad and all the other security guards and the trainer and like the whole crew that Michael rolled with. Like that'd be incredible.
Yeah, but again, that's up to the powers that be, ESPN and whatnot.
Well, that's our pitch right here. We need the documentary, a 30 for 30 on the security guards of Michael Jordan. That'd be cool.
They're all great guys, though.
I saw that your middle name is it's Travis after Clarence Travis. That's very cool. He's your godfather.
Right. He was my godfather, and he was my dad's kind of like his mentor. So my dad was born, and I named me Nicholi Travis after Clarence Travis. So. And
then I also saw Gus got your dad was the kind of recommendation to Michael Jordan, so there's a whole friendship bond, brotherhood there.
Yeah. Well, my dad and Clarence Travis were good friends, and Gus was, I think, at the time like a sergeant or a leader of their group, and they just respected my dad, and my dad really respected Gus, and they all kind of like just like guys, buddies, good friends together, and they said, hey, we got a job here, let's take it, looking out for one another. So that would be a nice aspect to highlight if there was a documentary, because Chicago police officers, like any other fraternity, you look out for one another. So that's what they did.
If you want to see some of the cool pictures from back in the day too, go to Nicholi Wozniak's Instagram. Go on there. You got was it Hollywood Wednesdays with your dad? Some cool pictures.
That was actually birthed from Jeffrey Jordan always posting Mondays or Michael Jordan Mondays. So after my dad passed, at the time I only had like a couple hundred followers, but it was just for me, kind of therapeutic, and also just to highlight that my dad, was a good dude, and some things like just old pictures. I got a lot of them. I just started posting it up there, and then after all this happened, it's gotten more traction. I just want to honor my dad because he's a quiet worker. He just he did his thing. He wasn't a promoter. I'm a little more of a promoter, salesperson than he is. So I just want people to know he's a good guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the love of
it comes across as.
And he he's in a very small fraternity of people that are friends with Michael Jordan. If you look at this now, like the people that he kept up with throughout his life, he didn't really keep up with a lot. And to keep up with your dad and keep him on and everything, that's just really cool for people like me. I'm kind of younger, but my dad was a huge Bulls fan and everything, and Michael Jordan just being that close to greatness.
Yeah. It's because, like my dad instilled in us that fear/respect, not to see Michael as just, a pal, but he's a friend of my father's, and, respect that. And, I had to, people would actually, be honest, people had reached out to me and, through the media, and I wanted to get the blessing of Michael Jordan's camp before I even did anything like this. So there's the utmost respect for him and his family and all he did for my dad as a brother and a friend.
I love it.
Well, Nicholi, thanks so much for joining us. You're welcome on anytime. Even if you just want to talk sports and shoot the breeze, you come on anytime. You always have a lifetime pass to the podcast. From every sound of it, your dad was an amazing person. So thank you so much for coming on tonight.
You bet. And yeah, reach out. I'm happy to jump on if you need something.
All right, thank you very much.
Take care, guys.